Hey, welcome to the channel, this tactical intellectual channel. Hey, this is a continuation of 3A. This video presentation is 3B. The other video presentation, we discussed the origins and who the original peoples were, and we knew that they were melanated Negro type people. So for this presentation here, we're going to discuss the second part of that equation. We're going to talk about the pale Arabs and their relationship or interactions with the original Arabs. Yeah, I'm also going to talk about the Arabs who are currently in Africa right now, but their origins go all the way back to the Arabian Peninsula because they are definitely affiliated or are part of that band of Arabs that you find still on the Arabian Peninsula. So we have this video clip that we're gonna rewatch. Just check out what he says.
The Middle East is the most melting pot region of the world. There are black, white, brown, Indian looking and Mongol looking people in this region, all of whom claim to be native and indigenous to this region. And for example, in Arabs, there are black, white, and mixed, the so-called brown Arabs, all of whom claim to be the real Arabs. But which of them is the real Arab? The black one, the white one, or the brown one?
So we're going back to the book The Arabs by Bertram Thomas, and it's kind of funny that we have to go all the way back to the appendix on page 355 where they put like a little excerpt, a little small mention of the origin, after saying all this stuff, 300 something pages, almost 400 pages of just saying the status quo before you get to the appendix and then you tell the truth of the matter, and it's just like a little sentence or two. So it's shady as a mug, but I mean, at least they spoke on it. Now we get to elaborate on that. So, of course, on page 355, it says that the original inhabitants of Arabia, then, according to Sir Arthur Keith, one of the world's greatest living anthropologists, who has made a study of Arab skeletal remains, ancient and modern, were not the familiar Arabs of our own time, but a very much darker people, a proto-Negroid belt of mankind stretched across the ancient world from Africa to Malaya. We are done with that part. Now let's turn our attention to page 358. Now we're going to start at popular. Now it says, popular imagination in the West with stage and cinema to minister to it requires that the Arab shall belong to the middle type resembling the, it says, handsomer kind of Jew. Now, a synonym to minister in this context is to attend to the needs of someone. Now, it says take care of, look after, see to, or assist. So change that sentence to from minister to it to assist. Popular imagination in the West with stage and cinema to assist it requires that the Arab shall belong to the middle type resembling a Jewish person today. Also, accommodate could be a synonym to minister to, so you can be like a popular imagination in the West with stage and cinema to accommodate that image requires that the Arab shall belong to. Yeah, you get the point. So let's go to the bottom portion of page 358, and it says, on the other hand, most North Arabian tribes are not round-headed, hawk-nosed Armenoids at all. They are Mediterraneans of characteristic long, narrow skull. And such ancient skeletal remains as have been dug up suggest that this was a common, perhaps the most common, Arabian type in the early centuries of our era. Still different, doubtless, were the earlier inhabitants of southwest Arabia, the dark indigenous Hamitic type of marked affinities with the Abyssinian. Such blood probably dominated southwest Arabia down into the times of the ancient kingdoms, the Sabians and Manaeans, and the rest who disappeared before the rise of the Himyarites may well in part have belonged to this ancient stock. Their inscriptions are in a character of which the Ethiopic character is a direct development. The dialectal survivals of their tongues in South Arabia today are spoken exclusively by Galiwak Hamitic looking tribes, and although these tongues are now greatly Arabicized, they are still incomprehensible to the Arabs of the north. The persistence in Arabia today of distinct racial groups suggests that earlier waves of people rigidly maintained a front against later intrusions, whether or not the basal stocks from which they sprang were kindred. It provides a reason for supposing that when the lettered peoples of antiquity used the term Arab only in the restricted sense of nomad and to differentiate themselves from Arabs, a usage found in Sabian and Himyaritic inscriptions and common to the Jews, they were conscious of a distinction deeper than a cultural one. Interesting. Let's go back to the video clip.
And I believe that Persians, Assyrians, Arabs, and all of the ancient inhabitants of the Middle East were an Ethiopian type of people, the so-called Semites, an Ethiopian type of people. People like the Somalis, like Ethiopians, like Eritreans, like Djiboutis, like dark-skinned Yemenis, you know.
Now let's go back to page 359 in the first full paragraph. It's talking about how, the earlier inhabitants of Southwest Arabia were the dark indigenous Hamitic types that had similarities with the Abyssinians. So it says that these were the Sabians. It says that they belong to that ancient stock right there, and of course they were Ethiopic in character. So check out this map here of the Kingdom of Shiva. You see the southwestern portion right there that belonged to the Hamitic or Cushitic Kingdom of Shiva. So you see, I mean, hey, I don't need to elaborate any further. It's right in front of you. So, I mean, no lies here. Let's go ahead and move on. You guys hear that? Hey, I don't mean to rain on anyone's parade, but hey, this is the time where, some people may get offended. So this is the disclaimer here. If you easily get offended by me telling or people telling history in a proper context, then you may want to turn this video off and go look at some cartoons or some sports or whatever, or just go read a book, because the views of history, especially in the West and the United States in particular, is very anachronistic and fallacious. It's wrong, point blank period. So we need people who can kind of put that umbrella up and weather the storm. So here we go, about to go into some hard-hitting narrative killing information. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this subject, I have to give a little monologue, so to speak. If I were to walk in a room full of scholars, full of people who have been at this subject for a long time compared to me, I can't label myself to be the sharpest in the room. Say if I walked in with Clyde Winters, Maria Charles, some of the Israelites on the street, some people who went to school for Christian studies, or some Muslim scholars, or some, you get the gist of what I'm saying. I can't claim to be the sharpest person there. So I'm definitely saying I'm not going to be the sharpest knife in the drawer when it comes to walking in a place full of scholars and trying to add to the debate or the discussion. So this is my lane right here. We're on page 359, and of course we've already read this. You see what it's saying right there. It's talking about the I guess the earlier inhabitants of the Southwest Arabian area, they were dark indigenous Hamitic type people, closer to Abyssinians or East Africans. So this is my lane right here. So I have to play a little bit from these Nuwaubian brothers. Now, I am neither Nuwaubian, I'm not Muslim, and I'm not Sufi. But I know my lane, and I know good information, good facts, good evidence when I hear it and see it. So I'm gonna give way, and I chopped it up into 20 minutes. So I may pause and give a comment here and there, or I may not. But I will let these guys cook, so to speak, and just show their work, show their evidence, and let you guys know that, hey, they know what they're talking about when it comes to these two types of Arabs. So let's go ahead and get it started.
Rahubat, greetings family, and to everyone out there. Today we're going to focus on the Black Arab versus the Pale Arab. This video, we want to dedicate this video to our sisters and brothers out there who are Muslims, and for those who may be interested in this subject matter, because as Nuwaubians, we have a very intimate connection and history to the Black Arab versus the Pale Arab subject matter. The Ansars are a tribe of Muslims that originate from the Sudan in Africa. And what's interesting, a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know
about the Ansars.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about the Ansars, and a lot of people do not know about Muhammad Ahmed. We'll show a picture of Muhammad Ahmed, the Mahdi. Muhammad Ahmed obviously is a black African, but he's also an Arab. And a lot of people today do not know that there are black Arabs and there are pale Arabs.
Yeah, that would sound like a contradiction, say somebody's African and Arab.
A lot of people don't know the history, that there's a distinction between the black Arab and the pale Arab, okay? And people think that Arab is some kind of race, when Arab is no race. It's just an Arabic word, or a Syriac word, or a Assyrian word that just means, some will say, means to move from one place to another, or a Bedouin. They'll say it means Bedouin, someone who's a migrant. Wanderers, yes. And so when you begin to go into the origin of the word and the people that live that lifestyle, what you begin to research and find out that these are black African people who were living in what we call today the Middle East. So when you look at what you say the Arab world today, in particular Saudi Arabia, a lot of people do not know that the original inhabitants of Saudi Arabia were black African peoples. They were black, undeniably black. When you look at some of the history, you can find this. It's easy to trace, in fact. For instance, some of the people that were ruling Arabia, when we go back to, let's say, 1000 BC,
okay,
right? 1000 BC all the way up to 200 AD, 300 AD, around that area, the tribe of people who was ruling that were called the Sabiic people. They say the Sabiic or Sabian peoples, where you get the biblical individual,
Sheba,
the ruler, the female ruler of Sheba. But that the Sabiic people did exist, that the Sabiic people controlled, I would say from Mecca all the way down from Mecca into Yemen. So you go from Saudi Arabia area, so that central southern part of Saudi Arabia, into what we call Yemen today. which were all the Sabeg people. Now look at the images of the Sabeg people. They have the woolly hair and the twists. Our people wearing the twist today. And so these are black African peoples, is the point. And they would you would be Arab. You would call them Arab. Now when you look at the Syrian people today, like that guy Assad, who they're fighting that Syrian war. Now those are Caucasian Arabs, so that's what you call the pale Arab, which you see today. But that's not who were the ancient people that ruled that land. Now here's an image, just so you guys can see, of some of the Syrian people that lived at that time. So, and now with these images, you can clearly see that they're black African. You can clearly see that they're black African. These are the ancient Syrians. So now I'm just trying to show that there was a distinct black Arab group of people as well as a pale Arab group of people. The pale Arabs is who we see today ruling the Middle East. These are the rulers of Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, and Syria, and Jordan. These individuals who are ruling today basically supplanted the black African Arabs.
Okay, where is the confusion coming up from, and where would we say these pale Arabs are coming up from? Because if you ask most people today, what's an Arab, they would describe what you say as a pale Arab. How do you get to the point today where we have this confusion with, pale Arabs versus what we're seeing black Arabs? 'Cause obviously the black Arabs would be African. Where do these pale Arabs come from?
The reality is Caucasian propaganda. Because what Caucasians like to do is they'll go into a country and they'll only show the Caucasian people of that particular area and just exclude like black people don't live there.
What do you mean by that? Because they don't look like your normal European. Like if you go to England, you go to Spain or France, they don't look exactly like that.
Yeah, because the Arabs today really have a Hindu or Indian origin. They come out of India originally, those peoples. And these are Indian or Hindu peoples who mixed in with Caucasian peoples. This is how you get your people that lives in Turkey today. So if you look at the Turkish people, they have that dark, that dark, pale, tan thing going on. They usually have jet black hair and dark eyes. So they're not your typical Nordic Caucasian. And you'll see even a more darkness with your Iranians and the Iraqis and your Syrians today and your Saudians, your Saudi Arabians. And so these are individuals who were Hindu, or what you would call, today they kind of would call them the Aryan Hindu from an ancestral point of view, because it was known that the original Aryans, that Adolf Hitler coined that term, popular name, they were pale-skinned Hindus or light-skinned Hindus, which if anyone who studies the Hindu culture or the Indian culture know that they have this caste system going on where the lighter you are, the more respect you get. The darker you are, you're ostracized. So because they have that thing called the untouchables. What they call the Hindu Aryan, this is where your pale Arab originally comes from, which would be identified as your ancient Persians. The ancient Persians, right, were these Hindu-like peoples who invaded the Middle East years ago, 1,000 years ago, a couple thousand years ago. They invaded the Middle East, mixed in with the indigenous black people, and produced this mix, hodgepodge of
what they call them, pale Arabs today.
They call them pale Arabs today. My point is that there's the pale Arab strand that lives in the Middle East. They're dominant there. But there's still the African strand who've been oppressed by the pale Arabs.
And there you have it. That was chock full of information. I like the facts, evidence, that he brought out, backed by really good context. So that cliffhanger that he mentioned about the melanated strand, hey, I like that. We're gonna talk about that. So let's highlight some of this melanated Arab element that's in Africa, but has origins back to the Arabian Peninsula. Now on part 3A, I already did a quick skim session on the African Arabs who have a connection and origin back to the Arabian Peninsula. Well, we're going to do another one a little bit shorter on part 3B right here. Starting right now, we have the Rufa people. They are an ethnic group of Sudan. They speak Sudanese Arabic, and most of the members from this ethnic group are Sunni Muslims. Let's go ahead and move on to the Shukriya clan. The Shukriya are a large Arab clan living in eastern Sudan. They may previously have lived around Meroe, but in recent centuries have settled in the Butana region between the Atbara River and the Blue Nile. Drop down to ancestry. Okay, they claim descent from the Quraysh tribe, and their ancestor is Abdullah and Jafar. There is some indication that they are linked with the Arabian tribe of Yashkur, a branch of Qais Island. So the Wikipedia article for the Quraysh or Qureshi was an Arab tribe that inhabited and used to control Mecca and the Kaaba. That's all we need right there. So now we go to the Qais, and it says Qais Island, often referred to, yeah, we already know. Okay, the tribe appears to have functioned as a unit in the pre-Islamic Arabia before 630. And that's all we need, man. So let's go to the Kababish tribe. It says the Kababish are a nomadic tribe of the northern Kordofan region of Sudan. Okay, let's drop down a little bit. The main religion of the Kababish is Islam, adhering to the Sunni denomination. They descend from Arab forefathers that hailed from the Arabian Yemenite tribe of the Yuhaina and speak a form of Sudanese Arabic. So we already went over and discussed the Yuhaina in 3A. So for the time being, that's all I have right now regarding these different Arabs that live in Africa but has origins back on the Arabian Peninsula. Earlier, I played a clip from the Nuwapian guys regarding Khartoum and what happened then. As you can see, I have the movie poster up. That movie was based on real life events of a modest state that took place in Sudan. And as you see from the article, it was a state based on a religious and political movement launched in 1881 by who? By this guy right here, as you see, Muhammad Ahmad, who was a Sudanese religious and political leader. And it says that in 1881, he claimed to be the Mahdi and led a war against Egyptian rule in Sudan. And he actually had a victory in his siege of Khartoum, but he did not do that alone. Obviously, as you see from the slide, the Ansar are a Sufi religious movement in the Sudan whose followers are disciples of Muhammad Ahmad. Now, that was just my long-winded way to bring you to this slide here, Sufism. Sufism is a mystic body of religious practice found within Islam. So they're basically Muslims, but a specialized segment or branch of Islam or Muslim. All right, so folks, we don't want to forget about the Bedouin here. I got the wiki article up. It says that these Bedouins, they are pastorally nomadic Arab tribes who have historically inhabited the desert regions in the Arabian Peninsula, North Africa, the Levant, and Mesopotamia. The Bedouin originated in the Syrian desert and Arabian desert, but spread across the rest of the Arab world and West Asia and North Africa after the spread of Islam. Easy work there. We're now in the portion of my final musings, and I want to just throw some things out here. We did get the definition of what an Arab is earlier, but here's something that was on my mind for a while. I have this article here from the Torah.com. Arab, Rav, a mixed multitude of meanings. So this is where I'm getting at here. So as we scroll down, here's my point. It says that instead, the common understanding assumes that Arab derives from the root meaning to mix, and that it refers to the nature of the group as being a mix of peoples. Now, the second part of that, Rav, that's irrelevant to me because it says that the second word Rav is an adjective meaning great or many, and thus the standard translation of the term Arab Rav as a mixed multitude. But my thing is the first word there, Arab, to mix. We know that Arabs came from Ishmael and the sons of Keturah. Well, 4 out of 6. So that's a mixture right there, and probably other groups, no doubt. So that's my reasoning. That could be totally false, but it's not far-fetched. And really, it could have been corrupted throughout the generations or centuries. We know that that's not far-fetched. That's a common theme. A word meant this or was said this way, and other groups heard it and put their own spin on it. What do they call it? A transliteration instead of a translation. But my thing is that it's not far-fetched. It could have been an Arab heard a Hebrew called or referred to him as Arab, and he probably just transliterated it into Arabic. And as they say, the rest is history. That's what I'm getting at. Like I say, it could be totally false and you can disregard it proudly, but that's just an idea. Disclaimer: if you have high blood pressure, you may want to look at this next portion in spurts. Alright, so today, from a Western or US perspective, we know that the Arab can at times display a certain ardor in their actions, to perceived slights, real or imagined, of course. But you guys remember this right here? See, Egypt bans Dutch archaeologists after museum casts Beyonce as Queen Nefertiti. So here's the situation. The Dutch National Museum of Antiques in Egypt, they presented Beyonce, Rihanna, and Nas as historical figures from Egypt's past, the original Egyptians. But guess what? The Al-Fagar newspaper, they said that they should have made it clear that the exhibition is about non-Egyptian African musicians. This is consistent with history, reality, and logic, as they were not and will not be Egyptians. So that same newspaper, they described the exhibition as highly provocative, and they said it requires an explanation. Here's the crux of the matter here. They say that Afrocentric ideas that try to rob the ancient Egyptian civilization of its people. The accusations further go on to say that they are falsifying history and adopting an Afrocentric approach. What? Now, keep in mind that that museum has played an active role in excavations in that part of Egypt since 1975. Alright, so I'm bringing more foolishness to you. As you see on the slide, just don't let it ruin your day. Egypt jurist seeks $2 billion in compensation from Netflix over Queen Cleopatra race controversy. It's old news, but check out what they say. Egyptian jurists and archaeologists are demanding financial compensation of $2 billion from Netflix for their depiction of Cleopatra as black in their docudrama. A letter submitted by the team to UNESCO on Monday states that they were asking for $2 billion from Netflix for distorting the Egyptian identity. Yeah, man. The letter also says that Egypt has the right to take legal action to preserve the tangible and intangible Egyptian heritage, whether ancient or modern. So notice this right here. The show has caused huge and at times hysterical backlash from prominent figures within Egypt, including the government or those linked to it. You see the attorney to the Minister for Culture, Assam Khalaf, he started complaining. He wanted the show taken down. And then this guy right here, the lawyer, Mahmoud El Samari, He wanted Netflix to be banned in Egypt altogether. Here's how he feels right here. He says that Netflix was attempting to erase the Egyptian identity by promoting Afrocentrism. So they did all that crying, but here's the kicker right here. The ethnicity of Cleopatra VII is not known. Despite the controversy generated by some Egyptians, many experts consider her depiction by the swarthy or brunette or melanated actress Adele James as falling well within the scope of historical possibility. The identity of the queen's mother is unknown, with some historians believing that she may have been a melanated or black Egyptian. So honestly, on TikTok and YouTube, there was so many Arabs out there talking, taking mad shots at people, man. Afrocentrism, man. Yo, Egypt is in Africa, folks. Come on now. Let's check out some photographs of this woman, Adele James. She's biracial from the UK. So the first picture right there. All right. She looks Arab to me. Second picture. Maybe she should have went with that style instead of the afro. I guess the afro threw him off. But she looks like she's from that area right there. East Africa, Yemen, Oman, the Levant. I mean, she looks like an Arab woman. Now let's look at her in full costume compared to who's that? Elizabeth Taylor? Well, anyway, man, I mean, she got a little hue to her. Okay, big deal. Check out this lady right here. This right here is Leonor Magdalena Varela Palma from Chile, Santiago, Chile. But nobody has any problem with that, right? I guess because it was in, 1999? That, hey, I guess we wasn't as connected social media wise. So they probably didn't get the memo that this was a Chilean playing their precious Cleopatra. That's all interesting, isn't it? Well, do you know who this guy is here? No? Well, this is Abu Zaid al-Hilali. He's from the 11th century. He's an Arab leader and hero of the Amarid tribe of Banu Hilal. That painting that you saw earlier was ironically an Egyptian painting from 1908 depicting Abu Zaid al-Hilali. Let's play a video from the UNESCO channel, the Al-Sira al-Hilaliya epic, and just see if you notice some interesting facts and depictions here, portrayals.
This great oral poem, also known as the Hilali epic, recounts the tale of the Bani Hilal Bedouin tribe and its migration from the Arabian Peninsula to North Africa in the 10th century AD. The epic is composed of 3 parts. The first part tells the story of Abu Ziz Hilali's ancestors, his birth and youth. Born black, he was rejected by his own tribe and so had to join another one. He became a great knight and allowed his adopted tribe to beat his original tribe, after which the members of his original tribe recognized him. The second part retraces the journey of the Bani Hilals, who were forced to abandon their encampment and move on every time drought set in, fighting many battles along the way. One day, Abu Ziz Hilali went off to scout and discovered the route from High Egypt to Tunisia, where he was imprisoned by the sovereign there. He was released after agreeing to return with a large ransom. However, Abu Ziz did not return with the promised ransom, but came accompanied by his own tribe and allied tribe. The epic tells of the numerous obstacles encountered along the way, before the second part ends with an account of the difficult conquest of Tunis and of the fratricidal combats between members of the Bani Hilali tribe for the city's loot. The third part tells the story of the descendants who followed in the footsteps of the Bani Hilali forefathers, becoming heroes in their own right.
Now, I fully expect this to be blocked in all of the Arabian world, but that's alright. As long as I get the US and the West, I'm alright with that. And parts of Africa and the Pacific Islands and Asia, I'm okay with that. Now, the point of my showing this video clip here was to show that these complexions are switching up, man. You go from the complexion that's bright to a complexion that's a little bit too bright. You understand? So, I mean, a lot of people that's the original Arabs, they didn't have all this fervor and, you know, threatening to sue and, you know, all this outrage. You know, I saw one video clip, I can't even find it anymore, but it was a original Arab, melanated Arab, swarthy Arab guy. He was like, man, they even got Halawi, they even turning him white now. So that's how all around the world, that's how the original people confront things. It's kind of like we don't put enough into it, as opposed to the latecomers to this world, to this earth, to this planet. We don't have lawsuits flying when they start swapping things out. Yo, this is crazy, man. Let me go on to the next point. So yes, I do have an article up, but I'm gonna just let it move. I'm not gonna read it. It's all about the imagery here. So all of this is very important. You know, I don't want to deal with people that's like, yo, man, you care about the past too much. Let it go. I mean, the past ain't. Nah, bro. If you don't know, then you're gonna always be in this Orwellian, Yamnayan, Stankaisian type of mentality, and that's the box you in, man. Like when you look at ancient cultures, you don't see yourself, you know, and that's what this Yamnayan, Stankaisian narrative is all about. You know, you don't want to adopt that. I mean, that's that's intellectual, that's mental bondage right there. Yeah, just think about whatever book you read, whether it be the Quran, Torah, Bible. When you're reading accounts, you're thinking about modern day people in that land. Like when you read about, say, like the Galatians, you're thinking about modern day people there. And then, I mean, if you speak to a modern day Turk or Oghuz Turk, they're not going to tell you about that. They're not going to tell you they come from Turkmenistan. They conquered that Anatolian area. And then if you are in the U.S. believing all that stuff, then, yo, who's in the wrong here? Me by discussing it, or you remaining inhibited? You know what I mean? For real, man. It's like you're inebriated. I'm sober, but you're inebriated. When you're inebriated, you don't realize it. You think you can do whatever, but hey, I'm moving better than you. You know, that's just an example. You know, I don't want to come across as cocky on here, but there's a lot of narratives that we have to sift through and fight through. Now, one thing, I don't want to come across as disrespectful. This is not intended. And the people who know from these areas, they know their history. But that narrative that the Yamnayan, Stankaisian type of crowd like to parrot is that, hey, if you're dark skinned, you just came from West Africa and south of the Sahara, you know, nowhere else. You never done anything. We gotta shatter that. And I'm starting with this part right here. The Near East series is just for that, because you know, it's a lot at stake, man. You don't want. I mean, that when you erase someone's history, that's really an act of warfare right there. So that's one thing, you don't want to be brainwashed perpetually in that state. This is the wrap up here. This is the conclusion of the Near East and Southwest Asia part 3B. Part 4 will be debuting next week. You guys take care.